So I will be chairing, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Professor Dame Wendy Hall from the University of Southampton, who will give an executive summary.
Oh, I can unmute myself. Thank you very much, Jane. And thank you to Derwin for twisting my arm to be at this event. No, it's a pleasure to be here and to kick things off. As Jane said, I'm a professor at Southampton. I've long been interested in things called ontologies. Longer than you might think. I was very interested. Well, I'm a pure mathematician originally, so I love it from the theoretical point of view, but I've long been interested in hypermedia. Back before the web, I started building a hypermedia system called Microcosm, which was a much better system than the web. But of course, and I've talked to Tim Berners-Lee a lot about this, it was a different type of system than the web, and it didn't have a global reach from at the beginning with open standards. So I learnt my lesson there. But what it did have was we created our links as separate entities from the text. We had our links separate from the text. They were stored in databases, and they were triples. So there was what the link, where it came from, what it pointed to, and there was a description of why that link existed, which is where we experimented with all the semantics in the 1990s. And I remember distinctly, one of our first applications was the Mountbatten archive, which Earl Mountbatten, his family home at Broadlands, which is just up the road from Southampton, was a very multimedia archive, lots of video and audio and text of his life and works and his historical achievements. And we set about trying to digitize this, which never actually happened. That was the hard bit, but also creating a microcosm application around it. And of course, if you put a link on the word Mountbatten, there were endless Mountbattens in the Mountbatten family, and you had to know who you were talking about. And if you were talking about someone like Lord Mountbatten, his titles and his role and his job changed throughout his career. So we tried very hard to evolve dynamic linking that enabled when the user clicked on a document that it was recognized. First, we had to recognize that it was Lord Mountbatten you were talking about, so you needed the context. That's still an open challenge in today's information world. And then you need to work out when was the document and what was his role, what was his title, so you could add some background information about what it was. Was he the Viceroy of India at that point? So you needed so we were very, very interested in how we added time to how we added a fourth dimension to our triples. But of course, I got a bit distracted by the World Wide Web and working with Tim, and increasingly Tim talked about the semantic web in his very first address to a web conference in 1994. And then he started to really work on it around 2000. And publishing papers about it, and the development of the semantic web really started in earnest then, and it was quite slow because it went down what I call an AI rat hole, in that it got taken over by the AI theorists, all the upside down A's and backward E's, to work out the principles of ontologies and all the things we discussed today. Can you have universal ontologies? How do you merge ontologies? What happens when they overlap from different worlds? All these issues are still open, but it went down a bit of a theory. And then, Tim tried to get people to use RDF and started talking about, let's get the data out there so we can link it and actually experiment. And that all led to the development of the Open Data Institute. And so we went, along the way, when you reflect on how that was all built, it tells us a lot about what we're going to have to do for the future, because it isn't obvious. If you have a good idea, people are going to use it, right? There has to be a driver for them to use it. And I think we are getting to the point where we've got a driver for four-dimensionalism. And I'll come to that in just a minute. That basically people say to me, what happened to the semantic web? Well, it's everywhere. In terms of linked data clouds, yes, there's a lot of that around, and you can still see the map that is all the linked data sets that are out there. There is not as many as there should be. But if you look at a company like Google would never call it the semantic web, they called it the knowledge graph. That now is a very ubiquitous term, and anytime you do a search on something like Google or Baidu, you're using the knowledge graph, which is basically semantic linking of information. So it is all around us at the moment, but we've got to add the 4D. So the fourth D, or maybe more dimensions down the line. But just to finish the story and then hand you back to the main speaker. I can't remember, was it 2 years ago now? I was working with Derwin on the Petrus project, which is IoT security hub project run by Jeremy Watson at UCL. And Derwin was funding some work at Southampton as part of that, and was really keen for us to think about and learn from Matthew's book. So he pointed me to Matthew's book, which I've just checked with Matthew. It was 10 years ago now, Developing High Quality Data Models. It's now our Bible, and it was published in 2011. So it's its 10th anniversary this year. And I didn't know this until Derwin told me recently, Matthew was introduced to four-dimensionalism by Chris Partridge, who's also talking today. And Derwin persuaded me to set up a series of what started out as tutorials at Southampton. This is pre-COVID. And we had a group of about a dozen people coming to Southampton to listen to Matthew talk, and then listen to Al Cook talk, who's also talking later today, because of the implementation he'd done based on Matthew's book. And really it was thinking from my perspective, was the 4D approach of this event. I might lose me a little bit there because it said my internet connection's unstable. So basically, to cut the story short for the purposes of this event, we started off having these meetings once a term, maybe. Then we gradually, more and more people started turning up at Southampton, and we had to book bigger rooms. And then, and this was all by invitation only, we don't have a website yet, Jane was talking, and then COVID hit. And of course we went online as the rest of the world would. And I'd like to make one point here, I've got 30 seconds. The most amazing thing about COVID for me in terms of success stories is when the whole world went onto the internet, it stayed up and running, which is a huge testament to the design of the system by the internet pioneers and the web pioneers. It gave us a system that enables us to do all this. And like everyone else, we discovered that more people could come to the meetings if we put them online. So we have something, we call it, for want of a better word, the 4D SIG, a special interest group. And I organize it. It's not, we can't point you to a website. It's at the moment an invitation only group, but we are working this year to open it up to so we can include have meetings that are open to anybody, but we at the moment, if you're really interested in this work and you enjoy talking about ontologies, that would be my plea to you. It does get it's wonderful for me because I've gone off in my world of policy and I don't get a chance to do research much these days. And these sessions for me are a session where people talk about deep technical things that I really enjoy. It's such a refreshing change for me to have these. And you need, that we do go quite deep into the technology, but also into the principles and the sociology. And I just want to finish with that point. Why we're at a tipping point, I believe, and it's become very obvious to people that don't even understand what a 4D ontology, 4D is or ontologies are, that we need interconnected data systems, information systems, in order to solve grand challenges like pandemics. Now, all of us for this meeting probably knew that anyway, but now the powers that be understand this. And this is feeding into, started out as a digital twin idea. You know, this, you have simulations and models of digital models of physical things. And what we need is the understanding now is we need an interconnected ecosystem of digital twins. And in order to do that, you need what we're talking about here, this sort of 4-dimensional data, data information systems. And so actually during the last year, the horrible COVID time, Matthew is now the technical lead of the National Digital Twin Programme, which is run out of CDBB, the Centre for Digital Built Britain at Cambridge by Mark, and Matthew's the technical lead on that. It's published several documents, including a framework data model that's really pushing forward the technical agenda for digital twins. And now what we're trying to do is get the government to push forward the socio-technical agenda, which is how you're going to use these things in earnest. And he also got an OBE for his services to information management in business. So congratulations again, Matthew, on that. You do us proud. And at that point, I think I've said everything I need to say. If you're interested and want to join the 4DSIG, please email myself or Derwin or Matthew or Al, and we'll invite you in. Jane, back to you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you, Wendy. That was really, really interesting and a great introduction for today. So thank you for that.